Good evening. We're here to share our second trimester update and also some of the progress we've made within the district thus far. I am a math coach. My name is Emily Trexler. Jen is my fellow math coach. These are the behavior coaches, Hillary and Megan. And then we have Jenny, Paula, and Laura. They're our literacy coaches. This first slide revisits the research behind coaching, and I'd like to read some of these quotes to you and also explain them more in depth. Both quotes are by Harry Wong. Dr. Harry Wong is one of the foremost authorities on the effective teacher side. I'd like to draw your attention to the first quote. The single largest factor in improving the educational outcome of a student is the effectiveness of that student's teacher in the classroom. In order for students to learn and achieve, we must have high-quality teachers. We know that. To build on this first quote, this next statement tells us how to get those highly effective teachers. Districts that provide structured, sustained training for their teachers achieve what every school district seeks to achieve, improving student learning through effective teaching. Effective teachers make the difference. Trained teachers are those effective teachers, and coaching provides that ongoing support and training to create those effective teachers. This graph shows some of the research behind coaching. You can see that traditional professional development, those drive-by workshops, sit and get, some people call it, are not as effective as when they are paired with coaching and ongoing support. This research indicates that coaching does indeed lead to successful adoption and effective use of proven instructional methods. I've shown the research supporting coaching. Next, we'd like to share with you some of the research proving that it's working in Vernon.
This slide details some of the results of coaching in math. Before I dive into the details of this slide, I'd like to build some background information for you. The Common Core standards have set very rigorous fact fluency goals in math. We felt this would be an important area of our curriculum to strengthen. To do so, we've brought two tools to our elementary math block. One of them is called Number Talks, and all kindergarten and grade 1 teachers were given professional development sessions on Number Talks, and then we modeled, provided feedback, and observed over the period of several weeks in every K and 1 classroom. In addition, in grades 2 through 5, Rocket Math was brought to our math curriculum. Again, all teachers in grades 2 through 5 were given professional development, and then we modeled, observed, and provided feedback in many of those classrooms. Not only did we help teachers bring this to their classrooms, we have also provided ongoing support throughout the year. So if any questions arise or troubleshooting certain issues with students, we've been available and supported teachers with that. So given that background, we wanted to take a look at our data and see, is what we're doing making a difference? So this slide compares this school year, 2012-13, with last year, when we did not coach around those programs. Students in grades 1 through 5 are given a computational universal screen. What we want to have happen from fall to winter is have a decrease in the number of high-risk students and an increase in the number of low-risk students. You can see from the data on this graph that in the previous school year, from fall to winter, approximately 12% of students moved out of high risk. This year, a little over 18% of students moved out of high risk. That's almost a 50% increase over past year's performance. Not only do we want students to move out of high risk, we want to increase the number of low-risk students. In the previous school year, approximately 7% of students moved into this low-risk category. This school year, however, from fall to winter, a little over 14% are now in that, increased in that low-risk category, which is close to a 100% increase over the previous year. So this data is able to show that when you coach around a program, you bring it to the teachers and you support them ongoing throughout the year, it makes a difference in the success of our students.
I also would like to build a little background before we get to this slide. Previous years, students, our writing instruction was really driven by the CMT of a prompt writing. And there wasn't a lot of explicit writing as a process. The process of writing being that you generate ideas for stories, revising those stories to make them better, editing, and finally publishing their writing pieces. Along with the process, having students incorporate crafts that real authors use. The Common Core has shifted this writing instruction from what we've been doing to now having K through, all the way up through, writing narrative, informational, and opinion persuasive pieces, which require the process writing instruction. So seeing this as a need, the literacy coaches provided professional development and writing workshop. As a result of our workshops and going into classrooms and to model lessons and having teachers implement those things that they've learned and they saw from us in their, the writing workshop has not only developed students' writing, but it also has positive effects in other literacy areas. One example of this is shown on the slide, is in some universal screen data from Maple Street School Kindergarten. Last year, in the winter universal screen, 17% of Maple Street School street kindergartners were low risk on the winter letter sound fluency universal screening. This year, 70% of the Maple Street kindergarten students are low risk on that same screening. To the point where the reading consultant also at Maple Street has said many times that she's attributing this a great deal of success to writing every day, because it allows for the students to authentically practice writing words using those letters and sounds, and that's the result she's seeing. I did bring a couple examples. These are both of the same child. I know it's hard, we were going to try to put them on, but this was an example of a narrative piece this child did. He's a kindergartner, and he was just starting to kind of start with the process. If you look at it, there's some beginning and middle and ending sounds, not a lot of vowel sounds. There's a couple sentences, it does match the picture. There's no sense of punctuation as he's putting periods at the end of each line instead of where the thought ends. And there is some unorganization to the picture. This is another piece later that they did later on after having writing instruction. It's an informational piece. So even just that jumps out, they went from a one-page, two-sentence to a full factual book on crocodiles. Looking through, there's about 6 pages of facts. There's a different kinds of crocodiles page, and there's also a diagram. And looking at even the writing, there are, the stamina that takes a kindergartner to do this has increased. Also, that there's more conventionally spelled sight words. There are punctuation. There's an exclamation point where they're using that correctly. There is, this example is actually comparable to the exemplar that they're showing the Common Core. So that's where we, literacy coaches, have put a lot of effort in this year in seeing it, how it then applies to other areas of literacy.
The graph here is showing a visual of pre and post scores measuring student engagement using the CHAMPS model tool for measuring student engagement. As we know, students are not available for learning unless they are engaged. So the interventions vary. There's 5 different classes here used as examples. The interventions that the behavior coaches use with the teachers vary based on the teacher's needs. They can be specific to climate within the classroom, whole brain teaching techniques, classroom management strategies as examples. And you'll notice in the first class, the pre and post data shows that classroom student engagement went from 67 to 82%. Class B from 56 to 74%. Class C from 70 to 80%. Class D from 71 to 82%. And the final class from 33 to 82% engagement. So we've looked at a lot of data. We've looked at a lot of hard data of some of the work that we've been doing in the classrooms, and now we'd like to give you a little bit more of anecdotal accounts of what we've been doing with teachers, since really our relationship with the teacher is where all the work happens. So all the coaches as a group will elicit feedback from teachers after we've worked with them in various ways. So we want to be able to inform our practice, we want to make sure that we're meeting their needs, so it's very helpful for us. But these are a few of the comments that were made. I'm excited about making changes to the way I structure writers' workshops so that my students can grow more as writers. Another comment was, this is how all our new initiatives should be rolled out. This is a usable document. This is how we can make sure things are consistent among the schools. And the third one was an answer to a question, what was the most beneficial part? It was an incomplete thought, so we thought we had to add that. So the most beneficial part of the work was the observations by class and suggestions proposed, suggestions that took into account my level of comfort with each one. It was also very helpful to see them model the strategies with the students. If you'd like to read more of some of these comments, these and other comments are also included in the packet that we gave you in that winter 2013 update, so you'll be able to see other comments as well.
Okay, so now that we've looked at how coaching has impacted Vernon, we want to take a look at how will coaching continue to impact Vernon. So we know that the Common Core state standards are staring at us in the face in 2014-15. Our students will be assessed based on these new standards. Teaching is going to look different because the standards look different. For example, we talked a little bit about the writing, but notoriously teachers K-3/4 really focused on teaching narrative writing more in a prompt style. The students would receive a prompt, they would respond, they'd move on to another prompt. Fifth graders typically worked on expository writing. With the Common Core state standards, starting in kindergarten and through all the grade levels, the students are expected to be able to write informational text, opinion and persuasive pieces, as well as narrative text. This is something very different for our students and for our teachers. As coaches, we are able to equip our teachers with the resources that they need to be able to implement these different genres of writing in order to meet the new Common Core state standards. The rigor has increased tremendously with the Common Core. If you take a look at your second grade now, will be the new first grade. So we know that we need to teach differently in order to reach these new high standards. And again, as coaches, we feel fortunate that we have the time also to do the research, to be able to bring those resources and tools and to model those strategies and to model what that teaching looks like for teachers, because we know, being from the classroom, that your half hour to 45 minutes a day to plan gives you enough time to go to the bathroom and make a phone call to a parent. And so they are looking for that guidance and support with their planning and their instruction. Classroom management and student engagement is critical. Any research that you read shows if your classroom management is not in place, learning cannot occur. So we have no time to waste in our classrooms with this new level of rigor within the state standards. And so management is just as crucial to establish that environment. Also looking at curriculum, and I know probably on the board you have heard a lot about curriculum, particularly perhaps our literacy curriculum. Right now, we did a great job, I think, as far as unwrapping the standards and writing essential questions. We like to look at that as a skeleton. The teachers need the meat to the curriculum. So this is an area that we've been working really hard on, being able to put that meat onto the curriculum. I think that for, let's see, each grade level, there's about 6 to 8 units, both reading and writing. That's 96 units. These units of study that would provide teaching points for the teachers will let them know what they need to teach in order to get deep and to meet that rigor that the Common Core asks for. And so as coaches, we have the opportunity to take our research and to collaborate with teachers and with each other to be able to provide those resources for our teachers who are working tirelessly in the classroom. And it takes a lot of time to be able to do that in-depth planning in this new way. As well as, if you look at the standards and you're taking a look at one standard in kindergarten and you follow it up through all the grade levels, it changes, but not that much. So being able to have that conversation and being able to see the vertical alignment as far as what does the standard look like in kindergarten versus second grade, and then sharing that knowledge with our teachers so that we're not teaching the same thing year after year is so important. And again, we're able to lead that, that vision for our teachers. So as well as creating and refining our common assessments, and then eventually, once we have that intact and in place, we're able to go into the classrooms and provide, we can continue with the planning with the teachers, modeling lessons with feedback, and that's really going to build that consistency. We want to make sure that all the students in Vernon are getting access to the same exact curriculum. And as coaches, being in all the different schools and seeing how things can be different, we are very committed to developing that meat to the bones to make sure that all of our students do have that same access.
And the last item on this slide, if it wasn't already enough for teachers to have to teach to the new Common Core state standards and the rigor that that imposes, and learning new curriculum, as you just heard from the SEED Roadshow, teachers have SEED to worry about as well next year. And as a member of the committee who reviewed the document and the process extensively, it's very clear that building administrators are going to spend a lot of their time conducting the evaluations, and that teachers will need coaches as supports for their instruction, as well as assisting in accomplishing instructional goals that they set for the SEED. And in addition, as you heard during the SEED Roadshow, teachers' evaluation also includes component of classroom management and the school climate via the student and parent surveys. Because this is a new component in the teacher's evaluation, they're going to need to focus in this area as well, and we as coaches see that is something that we can support them on. So there's a lot of information on that slide, but I just want to say in summary, teachers are faced with many new challenges in the upcoming school year. They basically need a new skill set, just as technology has evolved. We were talking about days of the typewriter, moving to the PC, and now with all the new digital devices that we have, you need new skill sets to be able to use that equipment effectively. Well, teachers need a new skill set to teach to the rigor of the Common Core. And we just feel that in order to be successful in moving on to that enhanced curriculum that's aligned with the Common Core, that teachers that will need our support even more next year as coaches. And I'm going to wrap this up by saying that this is our final slide. We chose a visual representing the journey that we face. We don't want teachers to feel like the mythological character Cepheus, who was destined to roll a boulder uphill to only have it roll back down for eternity. We want to support teachers. As coaches, we want to help teachers and Vernon reach over the tipping point of this hill that we face, this journey, and we want to allow them to go down the other side, the downside of the hill, with everything that is new and coming. We want to be able to go from being a bottom 30 district to a top 30 district and build momentum for other challenges that we'll face in future years.
Thank you. We'll give Mr. Baldwin a moment to turn on the lights and then we'll go and have questions. Thank you. Are there questions for the panel on the information presented? Ms. Thorne.
I would only comment that when the board was putting together a presentation for the town council, we thought that saying we wanted to go from the bottom 30 to the top 30 was good enough, and then we decided that it's not. That top 30 is an ambitious goal, but it fits, the language fits. I guess that's why we first came up with it too. But the top 30 is not an ambitious enough goal for us, that's all.
Anybody else have questions or comments? Ms. Bush.
Just a question. How often are you in the different schools? Can you give me an idea? Oh, sorry. Can you give me an idea of how many days a week, which schools you're in, your frequency, if you're working with teams of teachers, if you're working with individual teachers? I understand that, that everything's a little different, but I just like to see a little more of your connection with the teachers.
That's a really hard question to answer. I think if you looked at our mileage sheets, you get a pretty good sense. Some days we spend more time in 1 or 2 schools. Some days we're running around to 4 schools in one day. It really depends on what's going on with that teacher, whether we're starting work with that teacher or whether we're modeling a lesson. The starting work, at least the way we've been doing it, as behavior coaches, we sit down with the teacher and want to talk to them about what is it that they're seeing, what are their concerns, so we get a sense of when we come into your classroom to observe what you are seeing as a problem, what are we looking for? And then we will spend several hours on several different occasions going to that school to observe what's going on. And then we're sitting down with the teacher again to reflect about, so this is what we saw, these are some suggestions, and where do you want to go from here? And then the work goes on. So it really depends. It varies so much. So some days can be crazy and we're being all over the place, and some days are a little bit more quiet. When we want to reflect with the teacher after we've done an observation, we spend a little more time at central office, because what we're doing is we're really thinking very carefully about what patterns are we seeing, what will help this teacher, what's the research behind it. We want to have a very well thought out plan for that teacher. Do we need to bring in some more resources? Do we need to do a little bit more research? So it really, I think that for me at least is the best answer. It's all over the place, but we like to be out in the schools, I can tell you that. I think all of us really find the most stimulating days and the most gratifying days are the days that we're sitting down with teachers or actually in those classrooms, looking at the kids, working with the kids. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
The only other thing that I would add to that is, at the time being, we're primarily working with the 5 elementary schools. The behavior coaches have begun to branch out and start working with the middle school, and the plan is to continue to expand into next school year as well.
I also wanted to say on the literacy side, you asked a question about are we working with groups of teachers. We've provided a lot of professional development, and we've had the entire kindergarten, first grade, second grade population attend at least one of our workshops. We are beginning tomorrow working with teams of teachers. Kindergarten comes tomorrow, first grade the next day, second grade the next day, working with teams of teachers to work on the curriculum that Jenny was talking about. We've worked with individual teachers, we've worked with teams of teachers, we've had teachers collaborate with each other from different schools on the different initiatives that they're finding important. Our focus has shifted just recently to curriculum writing, but beginning of the year through maybe until just a few weeks ago, we were primarily in classrooms with teachers and modeling and planning with them, and it was most often with grade levels of teachers.
Thank you. Oh, would you like to add?
Thank you. Are there any? Yes, sorry.
Yeah, some of the slides indicated increased percentages in low risk and lower percentages in high risk and all. Are there any other factors that contribute to those changes? To student success?
I think there's always different factors that contribute to a student's success. But I know that, speaking from the literacy side, that the reading consultant at Maple Street School, looking at that specific set of data, was the one that was attributing it, saying, absolutely, I'm seeing this growth that she hadn't seen before due to implementing Writer's Workshop. Our expectations have risen for our students, and they're rising up to those expectations. The teachers are teaching differently, and I think, yes, there could be different factors, as always with anything, I think, but we do feel strongly that that is a strong indicator.
Thanks. With math, what has changed is that we've added 2 new tools to the math program at the elementary level. What hasn't changed is everyday math. So they did everyday math last year. They're still doing everyday math this year. But in addition to that, they have other additional resources now, and they're beginning to teach in a different way. It is district-wide. It is all teachers K through 5. And the data that we showed was our student data aggregated together. So that wasn't just one school or one grade level. It's actually grades 1 through 5 for the district to show that dramatic change.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? I just have one. I know last time that you had, actually maybe it was the first time you came to us, you told us that, you know, it was kind of a slow process getting into rooms, and it wasn't a mandatory process, but yet you were breaking down barriers. I'm just curious, are you seeing a larger number of people coming to you and utilizing this? You know, is it getting over that phase?
I would say yes to that question. We have built relationships over the years. We've been in this role now, some of us, for 2.5 years. So with that, we've also had the opportunity to bring new tools to the teachers, whether it's to do with the Common Core standards or new resources for the math program. It's given us something to coach around, so we've been able to coach with more teachers and more in groups. So it could be a team of teachers at a school or even grade level within the district. So we've been able to get into most classrooms at this point.
I think also looking at that last slide, talking about the tipping point, I think that the past 2 years we've really worked to get to the point that we're at right now, that we really could build some momentum. This year is a little bit different for literacy because we're specialized K, 1, and 2. So our teachers that we work with are selectively in those grades. I can tell you that other teachers that we used to work with miss us, but I can say from all of us that when we've had workshops, we've worked with every single teacher in K1 and 2 at this point in time. So,
thank you. Any final questions? Ms. Sarn.
To Dr. Conway, if our budget next year has funding for 4 teacher coaches, how do you expect to use them? In what areas?
I didn't understand the question.
I'm sorry. We eliminated, in our last go-round, we eliminated 3 teacher coach positions. How do you envision using the 4 positions that are left?
Before, we'll have to have that discussion. It may be that we'll work in literacy as opposed to mathematics. And maybe we spread ourselves thinly because we've built that up. The coaches truly need to be part of that conversation. They are the experts here in terms of coaching, and they want what's best for the district, so they'll be involved in that conversation.
Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. Now we're at 5.2. I apologize for going out of order. And this is the public school choice survey. Dr. Conway and
I will turn this right over to Mrs. Morasso. This is the survey that we started conducting in January, and I know she's done yeoman's work. You can see all of the work that she has prepared for you.
Thank you, Dr. Conway. The Connecticut State Department of Education's commitment to reduce racial, ethnic, and economic isolation, as defined through Sheff versus O'Neill, provides students and their families a number of options in selecting educational settings. Where historically students generally attended schools in the district where they lived, now students and parents can choose to attend schools outside the district to pursue educational interest. In an effort to understand the factors that influence these decisions, we surveyed 3 groups of parents, guardians in February. And at this time, I'd like to share with you an analysis of those results. The first survey focused on the parents and guardians of students enrolled in public school choice settings. We asked 2 questions. What attracted you and your child to public school choice? What can the Vernon Public Schools do to renew the excitement and interest in local schooling? Of the 146 surveys mailed, we received 56 responses, 23 electronic responses, and 33 paper responses. Those responses are provided to you this evening on pages 2 through 17 of the attached report. You've read through multiple voices with a wide variety of opinion, and I've tried to aggregate those responses by looking for key words that kind of trended up over the response rates. Those key words focused on curriculum. Parents seeking enrollment in public school choice settings outside the district were looking for curriculum that was challenging and rigorous, curriculum that was engaging and interesting. They were looking for courses for which college credit was provided, where technology was current and accessible. In many cases, the feedback related to curriculum also focused on theme and focus. It was linked to the curriculum. Themed schools appealed to the interest and needs of parents and their children. Comments related to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Media, technology, the arts, and world languages were mentioned. Reputation also resonated with many parents, as did the partnerships with institutions of higher education. Also related to curriculum was support for the gifted and talented student. The second survey focused on the parents and guardians of students enrolled in the Vernon Public Schools. We asked 2 questions. What attracts you and your child to your public school setting in Vernon? And what can the Vernon Public Schools do to meet your interest in local schooling? Of the surveys made available on the website and distributed by school-level means, we received 121 responses, 101 electronic responses, and 20 paper responses. Those responses provided to you this evening on pages 19 through 54 of your attached report. Again, there are multiple voices. There's a wide variety of opinion. Trying to aggregate those responses, I looked for key words. Clearly, what stood out for me was neighborhood, and the sense of connection that comes from knowing your child's friends and their parents was clearly important to respondents. And if you look at both of those factors together, 91 or 75% of respondents indicated that neighborhood and sense of connection attracts them to their Vernon Public School setting. In response to what Vernon Public Schools can do to meet interest in local schooling, comments trended around the following. Expanding an educationally challenging curriculum with access to state-of-the-art technology and options to support bright and talented students. Also, another item that came out was increased communication to publicly celebrate our successes, to sell ourselves and bring back the passion, the pride, and spirit once felt also resonated among those who responded. Finally, the third survey focused on the parents and guardians of preschool students. We asked 2 questions. What factors will influence your decision in selecting an educational setting for your child? And what can the Vernon Public Schools do to meet your interest and needs in local schooling? To that survey, we received a total of 10 responses, 9 electronic responses and 1 paper response. Those responses can be viewed on pages 55 to 59 of your report. Again, the themes were pretty consistent. A challenging curriculum provided in a nurturing environment and a neighborhood setting will influence decisions in making those choices. And while the response rate to this particular survey was limited, 4 out of the 10 indicated full-day kindergarten would meet their interest and needs in local schooling. More so than any other year, we have expanded our efforts to engage our community and to solicit their opinion on matters of educational interest. A total of 187 voices were heard in these surveys related to public school choice. Over 100 voices were recently engaged in our community conversation. And currently, we are collecting perceptual feedback related to school climate from parents, teachers, and students. Ultimately, as I look at all of this information, I feel there's work here for all of us. Students, parents, teachers, administrators, and the Board of Education need to reflect on the information shared and work collaboratively to improve teaching and learning for the Vernon Public Schools. That first step is awareness, which is what this presentation is designed to provide.
Thank you. Board members, questions? A lot of information, a lot of different statements here. Ms. Bush.
Today we were given a copy of the program of studies at the high school. And being on the curriculum committee, we've had many very innovative courses of study that have been brought to us and approved. I'm hearing in the surveys that the parents are looking for world language, fine arts, technology, and other things that are they're seeking out in other places. But we have many of these things right here at Rockville High School, in Vernon, right here in this book for the high school. We have a writing program in our English classes, our literature classes that have been recognized in the state and nationally. We have this in our schools. How do we get the parents to understand that we do have these programs? We do have these things that they're looking for elsewhere. They just don't always know that they are here in their own community, in their own neighborhood, and it's a little frustrating. So, like I said, I've seen many of these very outstanding programs here in our school, and I would love to see that parents are knowing that they have the option here in Vernon schools.
Well, I had questions. Thank you. Thank you for Mr. Beck.
Well, I don't know if we've adequately thanked the community for an overwhelming response to these surveys. I mean, usually when you put out a survey, the marketing people have a certain expectation of return. This blew it away. I mean, and they were very articulate answers and observations, and for better or for worse, and what I might have wanted to hear, they seemed to be very thoughtful answers and extensive answers in many cases. So I don't know who thought up the idea of sending out these surveys, but it was a good idea, and I don't think it should be a unique event either. I support what Laura has said. Some of the things that I pulled out of this, I was surprised that, they didn't know that they could do college level courses and access online, and what is Know the Net, and that's our fault. We're not telling them you can do that. If that's what they misunderstand, that should be easy to fix, I would hope. And the communications committee, I'd like to hear more about what exactly they're doing, so that we can expand on those efforts. What I heard a lot, though, was the fact that the folks are demanding all-day kindergarten. There's no way around that. They are adamant about technology. They are very concerned about discipline. I heard bullying more than I wanted to hear because I thought we were getting onto that. We put policies in place and there are mandated reporters that I thought, but if that's the way it is, if that's what's going on, then we've got to deal with it. More than I thought we had already. The comments on sports surprised me. There was a significant concern about the success of this and the adequacy of the sports programs that we have. And if I didn't say technology, I should have. I mean, the simple fact that we were national champions in robotics not so long ago is unknown, but we were. But I didn't expect to see the overwhelming opposition to leveling. That needs to be thought through by this board. I'm not sure where we're going to go with it. I remember when the levels were changed, but folks are very unhappy with that. That's what I got out of this. And again, I appreciate the effort that went into responding to us.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Good points, and I agree that the survey is a good idea, and it's something we have to ask. If we don't ask, we won't learn, and we can't make adjustments if we don't do that. Ms. Sarton.
Well, asking is one thing, but my expectation was that we would do something with the information that we were given. Ignoring the people who took the time to respond wouldn't be appropriate. My hope would be that in the near future, board agenda items for our discussion will be based on the responses to this survey, i.e. technology and bullying and uniforms and leveling. I would hope that comes back to the board for some discussion and we don't just put this away.
There are clearly action items in what we've learned, and I believe we will be seeing that coming to the board in the near future. Okay. See no other hands, we'll move on and get into our general business. Go to general business item 6.1, which is the school-based health clinic. Dr. Conley.
And I will turn this over to Mrs. Buell and Mr. Porcaro. This item has come up several times to the board at this point, and so we would need a motion from the board to move forward. So we've provided more information for you, Mrs. Buell, and I don't think we have a presentation ready. No. Is that correct? No. So we're here just to answer questions. And Dr. Passell, I'm sorry, which is one of the schools the clinic will start.
Can I go ahead and start? Okay. We have presented this a couple times to the board. The concept, we've followed the procedure necessary in order to request information and request a bid, a proposal to the public. So we've met our responsibility as far as that is concerned, allowing us now to move forward as we determine is necessary. I just want to highlight a few things. Clearly you heard from the community this evening who has been aware that we've been talking about this. We've talked about it at many different levels, but I just want to share a little bit of information with you. The Connecticut Board of Education has developed a position statement on school-based health clinics. And the focus is to reduce health and educational disparities facing Connecticut students to ensure that all students
have the opportunity to achieve academically and become healthy, productive citizens. As an alliance district, there is also a focus, and recent funding has been added to support wraparound services. Part of wraparound services are the development of the community school. So I think Vernon, has put a lot of pieces in place, and as you heard your presentation, we've heard presentations from Dr. Purcell about the community school. A piece of developing a community school is providing mental health services, healthcare services to our students. So I just I just want to share a few points. You've got the information from our original proposal, but the idea around wraparound services is that every child and every school is capable of excellence given the right conditions for learning. There are, the latest research that I found was from 2004. In Connecticut, 75,000 uninsured children at that time. Given the economy, I can only assume that that number has increased. In addition to uninsured children, there are many more with minimal insurance. By supporting the idea of the development of a school-based health clinic, we would be able to provide equal medical, dental, mental health services to students of the Vernon Public Schools. So just so we're clear, those services that we in Vernon are talking about creating in collaboration with this agency that wants to come at no cost to the Vernon Public Schools and provide these services. Clearly they're going to make some money from this service, but it's not going to cost money to our families that cannot provide or cannot pay for the service. But we're talking about mental health services or behavioral health services, dental services, and medical services. They also will be able to provide some staff wellness supports, and certainly they would need to follow all the guidelines of the public health, and would need to get parental permission to service any student, signed parental permission. But what we're really talking about is giving all of our students an opportunity to learn. Right now, there are some students that come to school, they're not ready to learn. When we talk about the behavior data and the ability to focus in school, not all of our students are ready to or able to do that, given some of the concerns they face. Excuse me. I've got lots of information I could share with you, but you've heard support from school personnel, from parents, from just the community in general has supported this. On two separate occasions, we've had local elected officials, Senator Bide and Congressman Courtney, both came to Maple Street School on unrelated visits, and both made the comment of, we need to create a school-based health clinic here. And I think they see that as part of the wraparound services that are included in providing services for students that we have in our Vernon Public Schools. We know that there is some population that needs a service based on our socioeconomic status, based on our Alliance District status, and based on the push from the State Department of Education that understands the importance of developing wraparound services for our students. So, I could share, I just pulled some information. There are, testimonials from students, from families, where students have benefited from these types of services. I won't read to you this evening, but clearly they're very moving about students and families who have been able to benefit from accessing school-based health clinics in Connecticut. There are several districts in Connecticut that have school-based health clinics, Ansonia, Branford, Bridgeport, Danbury, East Hartford, Groton, Hamden, Hartford, Middletown, New Britain, New Haven, New London, Norwalk, Norwich, Stamford, Stratford, Waterbury, and Wyndham. I'd like to be able to add Vernon to that.
Questions? Sir.
Patty, I don't deny the emotions involved in this whole discussion. Okay, so that being said, I understand that there are children who are needy. But when you talk about equal services in all students, we're offering a program at Maple Street School. I don't think that's taking care of all students. And although there are needs at Maple Street, there are needs in other buildings as well. So pouring resources into Maple Street is wonderful for Maple Street. It's not wonderful for other needy places. You mentioned the State Department of Education. Stefan Pryor said that his focus, our focus, is education and making sure that other agencies are doing their jobs. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he made that statement, I don't know, right out of the gate, that holding other agencies accountable is what we should be doing because education is our primary purpose. I would ask the question though, East Hartford has established themselves at Cornerstone. Why aren't we, which is right up the street, which isn't in a building, which doesn't have to worry about security issues and discrete entrances and people coming and going and access to other places in the school that we wouldn't want them, and on and on and on. Why not just expand the services there, use the dollars that they've generated through grants, expand the services and take care of students that I assume will be cared for at Maple Street, but it's open to a community now. Can you answer that question?
I can answer a few questions.
Okay.
I'd like to respond to a few things. And respectfully, I respect the board's position and personal positions on this, and you know, I understand this is controversial. So a couple things. One is that we are looking at creating the opportunity both at the high school and at Maple Street School. You know, so we're talking about 1,300 students that would have access in their school building. There are differences, as we know, across our town. Some students, families may not have transportation on either side of town, but we know that there's a concentration, number one, of students, and number two, students who may have minimal or no insurance or no transportation close to the Rockville area. So number one, we chose that location so that students and families could access it. So it is in walking distance, although students from Rockville attend Skinner Road School, Northeast School, and Center Road School. So there is some access to those families. So if a child is sick that day, their parents may be able to walk to Maple Street School and access the school-based health clinic versus you know, having to go to their primary care physician if they have it. The other piece about holding other agencies responsible, Stephen Pryor and the state of Connecticut does talk about kind of working collaboratively with other agencies and creating that wraparound service. So the State Department of Education does support the community school model. Part of the community school model does talk about school-based health clinics. Now, the additional question about Cornerstone, you know, it's kind of come up and down in different years as far as I understand. There have been times that, in my own experience, have referred students there that haven't been able to get in, and sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. The benefit to developing this in one of our schools is that we have developed a relationship with our families. Families trust us. Families know that we care about them. We have the, you know, they come to us. And so I think that when a family may have some language barriers, may be embarrassed about what's happening for them financially, they don't know what's going to happen when they go to Cornerstone. You know, are they going to hound me once I get there? Are they going to ask for my, you know, proof of insurance or some deposit? I think that they trust us, and they are going to be able to, we've built the relationship with those families, and they're going to be able to trust that we're going to support them and their students. And so I think that that's the difference. And I think the other piece of that is we're not providing the medical services, we're just providing a space. So we are working in collaboration with an agency to provide those services to our students. And so we're not taking on the whole job, we're just helping families and children to provide, to have access to that.
But by offering the space, we do take on the problem of security, of discretion, of HIPAA compliance, all of those things that do become our issue. And I don't see that that's been, I know that we talked about it, but I don't see that it's been addressed. Access, waiting areas, who's coming and going, how you're going to monitor that, access to other areas in the school. All of those things are still very concerning to me, and that's not East Hartford's problem. When we open up the space, that's our problem, and I don't feel comfortable supporting it, Patty, for those reasons. Not lack of need, but I think we are asking for an issue when we're trying to solve an issue.
Mr. Burkhardt, do you have something to weigh in on, the information to share?
Thank you, through the chair. Just by way of process and from a financial standpoint, if I may, just to inform the board as you go through your decision-making process. If I can speak to the proposed motion, the motion reads that the Board of Education approves First Choice Health Center, and just by way of process and review of Patty's mention of how we came to this point. An RFI was issued, information was collected, an RFP was issued based on the information received from that RFI. However, there were no bidders to the RFP. And so by way of process, we have satisfied all of the business requirements. So this board does have the opportunity to move forward with a vendor, any vendor it chooses at this point in time. We did receive a proposal after the bid had closed from First Choice Health Centers. That's why the motion to use them is on the table. There's also some grant funding that's tied to First Choice Health Centers, and that's, I think, an important point. I know you mentioned that before in the past, Ms. Steele, but I think that's also something to think about. It may not be explicitly clear in their proposal, but it was explicitly stated in our conversations with this particular vendor, and I'm not advocating to do this or not do it, but if it is chosen to do it, there would be significant funding to go with it, and there would be no cost to the board, and I would suggest to the board, if you do move forward, we explicitly state that as a requirement. Also, if I may, Mr. Kemp, there was some discussion at the Facilities Committee about some of the concerns raised regarding physical security, waiting rooms, and construction associated. I think if the board does choose to move forward with this, it was discussed at Facilities Committee that any modifications to the school or any schools would require the Facilities Committee review and recommendations to the board to move forward in that regard as well. So just to add that level of control if the board decides to move forward with this.
Point taken, and basically what you're saying is this isn't a blank check to go ahead and just start doing something. They're going to bring a plan and everything else, and there's more review process by the board after this is done. Mr. Nicholson, you have the floor.
Okay, one of the concerns is we only did have the one company come forward that the reason they're coming forward is they already have grant money lined up, so if they don't sign up with us, they lose their grant money. So that's a concern. If it's such a viable, great idea, we should have had more interest in it. And also, I don't know if you ever really fully addressed the liability issues of a malpractice claim coming in and they're in our building, or a infectious disease spread that are in our building. What has been done to address our liability in those events?
Mr. Kemp.
On page 4, you'll find under added value, the second line addresses that particular issue, I believe, as it says, Vernon, and going on to say the added value of malpractice coverage through the Federal Tort Claims Act. This reduces the risk of frivolous malpractice claims and eliminates the need for expensive malpractice insurance coverage on behalf of the center.
The adoption and the rest of the eliminations. We still have those.
Well,
Mr.
someone
Carr,
can always sue you, I mean.
Mr. Carr wants to share some additional information.
Thank you. Through the chair, at the request of the board, we did reach out to our liability insurance provider, USI. To Mr. Nicholson's point, there would be a minor increase in our general liability insurance costs, but we would have to make it a requirement to control any exposures of the vendor coming in if we decide to choose to do that they would have to bring their own insurance, including the malpractice insurance and any other insurance related to the operations of the health center as part of their contract with the board.
But we would still be subject to claims.
I think through the chair, we could always be subject to claims, correct?
Yes.
Mrs. Bush.
In prior discussions, I thought that an idea of having a mobile unit or something like that be a way to keep our schools intact instead of having to use offices within the school, which would help the security issues, possibly to expand or to move to other schools as needed. I really liked that idea because of it being not intrusive into the schools. I like the idea of they have blood mobiles, they have x-rays that come in mobile units and things like that. And I haven't seen any of that be explored at all. And I'd like to see that, because if the company that is considering that could use that as an option, I think that would be a good way to keep it from being directly into our schools. And I don't know if that's a feasible option, but like I said, they're everywhere. You go, you can even, renew your driver's license or, your tags or whatever in a mobile unit. And I know that that would have less exposure to our school.
Just in response to that, we did request in our proposal, request for proposal, an option of a mobile option, and we had no response to that. So at this point, we don't have an agency or vendor that's come forward to provide that to us. The vendor that did come forward had initially had conversation with us, interest in providing that service to the Vernon Public Schools. We had an interest in him providing, or his agency providing a service, or someone providing that type of service. And so that was how they then applied for the grant. So it wasn't, it wasn't like he went and got a grant and then shopped around for a school. If the Vernon Board of Education chooses not to use this vendor, he'll take his money and go somewhere else. He will find another school to do this. So I think that, in the future, if we were to bring this forward in another couple of years and the board were to say, that's a really great idea, let's move forward with a school-based health clinic, I can't tell you that I'm coming forward with a vendor that has $500,000 sitting in their pocket to make this happen. So, part of our conversations when we had the initial discussion about what it might look like, where it would be located, we took into account issues of safety, escorting people into and out of the school-based health clinic, the use of space. We did identify in the proposal that if we were to enter into an agreement with an agency and the renovation would need to go through our facilities committee, but that the cost would be the burden of the agency. If we exited or terminated our agreement with this agency, they would be responsible for the cost to return to the prior condition, that space. So, in speaking with Dr. Purcell and speaking with Eric Bain from the high school, they both felt as though it was important enough that they wanted to make the space available, make a space available that was close to an entrance, that they could control the entrance and exit of people accessing the service.
Ms. Fisher.
I want to move this to, I'm going to make a motion that the Board of Education approve First Choice Health Centers, Inc. as the school-based health clinic for Rockville High School and Maple Street School.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Goldich?
I also,
Is this a second on the
it is a
motion?
second.
Okay, thank you.
I may want to make a friendly amendment. In the Facilities Committee, we suggested that there are 2 stipulations. One stipulation being that it's no cost to Vernon Board of Education. The second stipulation be that any modifications to school buildings must be approved by the Facilities Committee, or subject to Facilities Committee review and full board approval, including any change orders.
Are you good with that? So that's the motion as amended.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to bring the motion to a vote. By a show of hands, all in favor of the motion. And those opposed? The motion carries 4-2. Thank you. Then you have the vote, correct? We'll get that information to you.